Matt, do you anticipate everyone continuing to call this track Atlanta, or will the name catch on like Lowe's Motor Speedway did with a lot of fans back in the day?
Good evening, everyone. Hello. We've fallen into the show much like we fell out of the show with your internet problems last week. We've fallen into the show this week with COVID's issue. Will it be called Atlanta Motor Speedway? Yes, amongst all of the fans. Yes, of course it will. I think everyone still called it Phoenix in the ISM days, and that didn't last very long, did it? Because of ISM's financial woes. So I think it's still going to be Atlanta Motor Speedway for everybody, generally, apart from obviously on the broadcast and in print and whatnot else. But generally across social media and amongst the fan base, it will always be Atlanta Motor Speedway. If this had been a new track that had been built and then had the spot, and then the sponsorship of the racetrack was at the beginning of its lifespan, I don't know, say Donington Park was McDonald's Raceway or something here in the UK, just for we'd call it McDonald's Raceway, wouldn't we? Something like that. But because everyone knows it as A, don't change it to B and expect people to forget that A was there already.
Do you remember when we used to call it Simply Sausages? When after all that mess, Donington got taken over by Simply Sausages. Then MSV came in and took it over, and now it's back being Donington. Although, for the love of God, install air conditioning in your commentary boxes, because that was the one downside. Okay, now taking a look at NASCAR's new in-season challenge. This concept is similar to the NBA's in-season tournament, giving drivers something additional to race for in the middle of the season. Now, as I mentioned, it kicks off at Atlanta, then it continues at Chicago, Sonoma, and Dover before the in-season challenge champion is crowned at Indianapolis. Now, as you see on the screen, those are the 32 drivers who are eligible for the $1 million grand prize. Brad Keselowski was the last driver to lock in after Nashville. Shane Van Gisbergen, Cole Custer, Riley Herbst, and Cody Ware were the 4 full-time drivers to miss out after failing to get into the top 32 in points. For the next 3 races at Michigan, Mexico City, and Pocono, drivers will be seeded by their best finish in those races. Now, the first tiebreaker is the next best finish in the 3 races that determine in-season challenge seeding, and the next tiebreaker would be the points standings after Pocono. On his Actions Detrimental podcast, Denny Hamlin said he believes the seeding should just be 1 through 32 in points, because determining this on 3 races could lead to flawed or misleading narratives. Hamlin used the example of someone like William Byron having 3 bad finishes in a row, then being the number 32 seed, and if a driver of his caliber were to beat his opponent at Atlanta, would that really classify as an upset in a bracket? Now, he also mentioned how a driver lower in points could string together 3 good races and get a higher seeding in the bracket as well, the graphic courtesy of NASCAR. Well, Matt, is Denny Hamlin right to be concerned about how NASCAR has decided to use the next 3 races to seed the in-season challenge and the possibility of it creating the flawed narratives?
Much like the All-Star race has become a pit of confusion with its formats and competition yellows and alternate tyres a few years ago, this was something that, well, for starters, this didn't need to happen anyway, full stop. But now we're getting it, and now it's confusing. You're quite right. It should have been 1 to 32. If one advances against 32 or whatever, however, the next round should have been 1 against whatever 32 is halved. I can't do the maths at this late in the day. And then they go again, and then they go again. We don't have the best bracket. It's not really a bracket because it gets drawn every time, but the best bracket in the world is the FA Cup here in the UK, and we don't have to have any seeding before every single round of it, apart from they're given new numbers on the balls and they're pulled out the hat. That seems to work fine and has done for over 100 years. It's typical NASCAR just trying to confuse matters for the sake of confusing matters. Then he's right. It should have been 1 through 32. You move on. You play the next person on your side of the draw, and it filters down, much like the World Cup does in soccer in its knockout form. You filter down, and the people that are left at the end play off for the final race when Indianapolis or whatever it works out to be. I've even lost track of when it's supposed to be and who's in it now, to be honest, because it's got ultra confusing, disappointing for him, but probably good for some people that they won't come up against Shane Van Gisbergen at Chicago because he's not made the cut. Because he's probably going to do fairly decently at that race, you would have thought. And he's had a good couple of weeks coming to this. He just didn't get the points to get in after Nashville last week. But Brad's in. He'll go well at Michigan this week and perhaps at his home track and get himself a decent seeding. But it didn't need to be. Seeding shouldn't have even been mentioned. From the beginning, this should have been first to 32, and then you chop them all down and see who's left at the end.
Well, like we saw when the playoffs were drawn in, back when it was known as the Chase, we're going to see quite a lot of changes, I feel, over the years. This is the first year we've seen it, and I don't think everybody's really looking forward to it. I mean, it's not the regular season, but it is still the regular season, and it still counts at the same time. It's so confusing. It's like we've got to keep track of two things at once in a very difficult 4-hour window. So, yeah.
Well, I will speak for my Ultimate Sports Radio Network colleagues when I say we won't be talking about this on our races on the air.
Do you know what? I don't think I will either. I think I'll be sticking to the actual stage
the
points.
Actual races and the playoff picture and the championship standings.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to be sticking to. And when we get to Chicago, everyone's going to be looking up at the sky just to make sure A, it doesn't get dark, and B, it's not going to rain. But then again, they have moved the start time a bit, so keep your fingers crossed.